This episode is brought to you by Gabit, the longevity ecosystem helping you live healthier and longer with smart wearables, science backed products, and expert coaching. I've been wearing the smart Gabit ring, and honestly, it has completely changed how I think about my health. It tracks all four pillars of health, including sleep, stress, fitness, and nutrition, and gives insights that actually make sense. The VO2 Max on demand, HRV, sleep stages, workout zones, stress, calories in and out, and so much more. And I love that the AI voice logging is unreal. You can literally say what you ate and it logs it instantly. It even has this AI health coach, a PEP, to help you and assist you at all times. So if you want a smarter, science backed way to optimize your health, check out Gabit.com. That's GABIT.com, and you can use my code MaryC for an additional 5% off. Now let's get back to the episode. Hi, Peter, and welcome to the Be That Life experience.
Hello, Mary. Thank you for having me.
I'm genuinely excited for this conversation because, I believe that it's totally like the perfect intersection.
hmm
You and I live in very similar worlds because have devoted your life to really understanding the mind, while I have been obsessed with the gut
hmm
for so many years. And
hmm
you and I both know how important it is to have the gut brain connection.
Yeah.
And, I like to kind of use the saying like it's like the ultimate like long distance relationship that we're
hmm
having inside the same body,
Yeah.
right? So, my first question to you would be, if our mind was a home that we were looking to renovate,
Yeah.
what is the first thing that we were going to renovate in order to live in peace?
Ooh, there's a lot of tenant improvements that most people need. I think actually most people's are complete tear downs.
Yeah.
No, I jest. I think, yeah, the mind's gut connection, it's inextricable, it's unavoidable. The question is what's in the way, right? Like without getting too esoteric out of the gates, I feel it's sort of like the illusion of being separate, right? We're all connected. We can't not be connected, whether you look at it through modern physics and its unified field theory, or you look at it through spirituality and its consciousness and the absolute. So likewise, gut and brain, they're connected. The question is, what is the level of disturbance, right? So that's the first thing to look at, is the illusion of separation, the illusion of division, and to recognize both in humanity, regardless of nation, religion, sports team, whatever it is that creates division, that underneath it all, there is unity. And when you feel that, then actually you get out of fight or flight, you get out of survival. And that is the greatest access to reconnecting with your gut. Because as you know, in the autonomic nervous system, if you're in a state of sympathetic fight or flight, freeze, then digestion doesn't work. Whereas if you're in parasympathetic, which is, in rest and rejuvenate, and you're connected to life, then digestion is immaculate.
Yeah,
So
100%.
to answer your question, literally, you have to get out of the illusion of separation.
Get out of the illusion of separation.
Yeah.
How do people get out of the illusion of separation?
By realizing it's an illusion. I mean, I always use the analogy of like 2,000 years ago, Galileo decided or discovered that the world is a globe as opposed to flat, which I guess now is still up for grabs. Like I'm so confused, but let's just say that he was right and we live on a planet that is a globe versus flat Earth. When people lived on what they thought to be a flat Earth, then there was a fear that was inextricably connected to that, right? Which is that we're going to fall off the edge. Makes sense in that paradigm. But as soon as people realize, well, hang on a minute, you can't fall off the edge. So even with some of my greatest athletes in the States, like NBA players who can jump and dunk basketballs, they can jump as high as anyone. They're still not going to fall off, right? Like try, you're going to come back down in a few seconds. So when you realize that, okay, the illusion of a flat earth, and when that's dissolved, then you remove the fear that's associated. So the illusion of separation is similar. It's made up. It's very convincing because the equipment of mind and body, we look through this, you can't see through my eyes and my brain, I can't see, through yours. And so it occurs as though you're over there and I'm here. And that's not to deny in the world of the manifest and three-dimensional reality that there's separation, but underneath it energetically, there's interconnectedness. And so the how is just by realizing it's not true.
something that really stuck with me that Deepak Chopra said, and I mean, I use this with every single person that I meet today, is that the problem with the world today and the reason why there's so many people either stuck in their own lives, in relationships, in businesses, in friendships, even in family dynamics, is because we always enter these partnerships, relationships, and expect other people's level of consciousness to be like our own. However, we need to accept people in their level of consciousness. But to be honest, it's easier said than done because it's
Yeah.
really difficult to accept people in their level of consciousness because we may meet people who are, 5 years, 10 years younger than us, or 5 years, 10 years younger, 10 years older than us. And yet, like, you know, it's so hard to pretend or go back to how we were when we've progressed. But then how do we communicate with those people? Like, it's in many ways the same dynamic in relationships.
Yeah.
Right? You would maybe, I mean, it's kind of common now, like a lot of older women are dating younger men. And I bring up this topic because I've been in that dynamic, right?
Yeah.
And I guess the struggles in those dynamics is like, I am living in a certain position in my life, or I've elevated in a certain position in your life. And then when you meet a partner that is maybe younger and it's not in that level of life, but then you start off thinking like, you have all of these same aspirations and dreams. And then
Yeah.
all of a sudden the honeymoon phase ends and it's no longer the same aspirations and dreams, right?
Yeah.
But then how can you make a partnership like that work?
So you might not like the initial response, but having a partner where you say they might not be at the same level of consciousness, which I understand, and that's going to be very common regardless of chronological age. So your lack of acceptance for somebody's level of consciousness is your current level of consciousness.
Oh, that's a good one.
Do you see? So when I work with people, especially typically women, because women, you tend to be more intuitive, you do more of the work, I sort of tend to attract more of the feminine who are really interested in this inner world, as opposed to men tend to be focused on trying to dominate the outer world as a general stereotype. So when women are like, oh, my man is emotionally unavailable, or he's immature, and I get it. I'm not denying that objectively, if we were to look at that, there's not some degree of truth to their statement. But what it really denies is their ability to recognize their lack of acceptance and love for where somebody's at, which is what they need to work on.
Totally.
Right. So otherwise you're coming through the lens of judgment, which then is no better than somebody who's at apparently a level of consciousness that is beneath you, because your judgment, criticism, lack of acceptance is akin to a lower level of consciousness. So the work is still on both sides. It's immaterial. You're going to attract people. One of my quotes that people love the most, I say, life will present you with people and circumstances to reveal where you're not free.
Right.
So if in this case you're not free because my boyfriend, girlfriend is younger and they're more immature, well, what you're showing is you're not free. Either two simplest responses is two, finding more love and acceptance for where they're at, which is your work, or finding permission with your own self-worth to move on.
Right.
Right? Because there might be fear around, well, I don't want to be alone. Well, now you're justifying your own level of consciousness and fear and using them as the excuse. Right? It's still manipulation at the, sort of the ugliest word.
Totally.
So yes, level of consciousness, everybody's going to be where they're at, but it's immaterial because really they're just the opportunity and the catalyst to reveal where you still have work to do.
Yeah, and it's love and acceptance
Yeah.
wherever everyone's at, right?
Absolutely.
And I think that's really the hardest part for a lot of people because they can't just accept the way. We're wired in a way that we want things our way, and we want people to be in our direction and looking life in our path.
Yeah, which is really the ego and its own sort of self-righteous perspective. The audacity of the ego is that we know how everybody else should be. I didn't get the memo that you're in charge of the universe, let alone other people's behaviors. And so it's very humbling when you recognize, who am I to say how life should be? Right. It's really, it's quite unattractive actually when you really see it. And it's like allowing people to be who they are. First of all, it's not your prerogative to do that, but when you can get to that, it's like, oh wow, who am I to judge others? If I had their genetic makeup based on the DNA that they got from their parents, and I was raised by their parents, care providers, whoever they were, and then I went to school and I had the teachers and the disappointments and the heartbreaks and the failures, then if you went through every moment of that human being's life, then whatever behavior you're currently judging, it's asinine, because you would be doing the same thing based on their conditioning.
Totally.
It's just, we don't look at ourselves. It's like the old expression, I can see the speck in your eye, but not the log in my own.
Yeah.
Uh,
But anyway, relationships are a mirror.
Oh,
We
life
speak
is,
that
that's all
about
life is.
like
It's
even
all,
friendships, relationships, anything, family, any type there's a trigger,
yeah,
it's always a mirror,
yeah.
right? And that's why when that quote was said by Deepak Chopra, I just had a better understanding meaning of it. And I was like, that makes so much sense and
Yeah.
total sense. And that's the reason why certain people they just thrive in life in everything is
Hmm.
because they just have a lot of copious amounts of love and acceptance and compassion for everyone that they meet.
Yeah.
And that's the reason why they are at that level,
Yeah.
right? And I think that's really profound and really beautiful. Now, for me, I feel like I've met so many people in various walks of life,
Hmm.
high net worth individuals, entrepreneurs, CEOs, executives. They've done so much inner work. They've
Hmm.
gone biohacking, they've done the retreats, years and years of therapy. Yet, after all of those years of therapy, they're still stuck.
Hmm.
Why do they feel like that? Why haven't they progressed? What is it about those things and those modalities that haven't helped them progress?
So it's kind of like window dressing, right? Like, that again, I don't know the direct answer because it depends on the individual, but for the most part, invariably the things that we pursue, the behaviors that we're drawn to are reflections of whatever we feel is missing. So the compensation patterns of a human being are typically reinforcing the underlying sense of inadequacy. If somebody thinks that they're not good enough, then they're going to pursue things, whether it be maybe for a woman, it's about appearance, hair, makeup, clothing, as a compensation. If they feel they're not good enough as a man, it's usually in the arena of performance. I have to make more money. I have to have the right car. I have to have the six-pack abs or whatever it is. So typically, whatever we see as, your listing as these things that people do the work, oftentimes the work is being generated and driven by the underlying sense of inadequacy of the ego, and therefore it's just self-perpetuating. So that's why they're stuck, because the mechanism that's actually driving whatever it is they're seeking for is just looking for self-validation, meaning the ego just wants to be right about itself. See, I told you that was too good to be true, or this will never last, right? The statements that people make, which only fulfill on the very thing that we're here actually to transcend. So it doesn't really matter what people do so much. I'm much more interested in who they are beneath their actions.
You have worked with so many athletes
Hmm.
and so many elite performers, people
Yeah.
in that space where you think that they have everything, but in reality they are like the most depressed. I meet so many people like that where I
Mm-hmm.
see that they from the outside they have this, like on Instagram and everything that we're seeing,
Yeah.
it's always the highlight reel.
Yeah.
And you think that they have this picture perfect life and like we want to live their lives, but beneath that they are either they feel the most alone and they feel the most isolated, they feel that they're most misunderstood.
Yeah.
And working with those type of people, what do you think you've experienced that's running the most in their subconscious minds?
I think it's true of all humans, regardless of career, their profession, their accolades, their achievements, because we're wired as humans to think that fundamentally there's something wrong with us or we're somehow inadequate, right? The main buckets of inadequacy, insecurity, and scarcity tend to be the pillars that support the identity from which we try to escape. Oftentimes, high-end performers that I work with, that was the compensation for feeling less than or not enough as a kid, or maybe their brother, their
Yeah.
sister was the better athlete or the academic. And so the compensation is like people who didn't get enough attention. Often they become actors as a way to try and get that. And again, so it just reinforces the vicious cycle that is the ego that's trying to compensate for its own flaws. So that's why, regardless of what people do or their status or their fame or their brilliance of what they do, are typically stuck because they're still identifying as a human being who's somehow flawed, as opposed to embracing that. That's part of the beauty of being human. I often say, don't become perfect. You'll have no one to relate to. Right. And yet the predisposition of the ego from its sense of inadequacy is perfectionism, right,
Yeah.
as a coping strategy. So oftentimes, whatever it is that we do as a means of strategy to try and disprove our feeling of woe internally is what's the barrier to true intimacy and connection. So that's why children are so beautiful and they're so easy to love and they're so available, because they're authentic. They're not trying to be somebody they're not. So regardless of who I work with, yes, I work with some of the best performers in the world, and it's incredibly fulfilling and humbling to help somebody who's immensely gifted to find a new level of freedom, which then cascades automatically, usually into their performance, and so they get better results, but with less effort. I mean, that's, to me, that's like Mecca. It's like, wow,
Yeah.
I had a professional, he wasn't a professional golfer, but he's a scratch golfer. He's a very successful hedge fund guy. And he'd won a few amateur events, which was a big accolade or big achievement. And yet he was working so hard. He had the coach, he had the simulator in his house. He was always bombing in and out of the country club to work on his game, ignoring everybody. And he realized when we were working together, oh my God, I've become the complete asshole at the golf club. And I said, well, no, you're not the asshole. You just play one in life because you're being driven by your fear and trying to try and impress people as a means of getting love and acceptance you don't have for yourself. And so when he saw that, he stopped and he acknowledged the security guard. He got to know the guys in the clubhouse, and he would barely practice. And he started to win so many events because he was at peace. So it's across the board. It's not limited to my high-end performers or people who have this pristine life on Instagram.
Yeah.
That's all the facade. Humans
is.
are preoccupied with trying to look good as a way of trying to be loved and accepted. And I'm teaching people to love and accept themselves regardless.
It's funny because like every time we're surrounded by people who have achieved so much, there's so many people out there who have this like, they get starstruck.
Mm-hmm.
But then I don't get that same feeling anymore, mainly because they're just like us. We're all exactly the same, right? We're humans. We've maybe achieved different things in life, but ultimately we are the same. So I think if you can just look at people in that same avenue and respect people where they're at in life, I think compassion is where it comes in the most, right? But every single person in the world went through trauma in life. We've all gone through it. Some
Unavoidable.
Decide they don't want to deal with it and compartmentalize it and bring it out in relationships, in life, and so on. While other people like really work on it and do what they can so that they can live better lives. If someone would come up to you today and tell you like, you can see it in them that they really need the work, but they don't see that they need the work. What would you say to someone like that?
Nothing, unless they were really asking for help.
So that's the thing, right? People need the help, but don't ask for help. But how can we help them change?
By allowing them to be where they are.
But there's so many people who never want to change.
That's okay. Your desire or attempt to try and change people who don't want to change shows where you're stuck.
Yes.
Do you see?
Yes.
It's a very subtle judgment, and and God bless you for wanting to help people. Usually they're people that we care about, family, friends, loved ones, right? But the brain is designed to protect itself. And so as soon as you go in, and it can be subtle, it can be manipulative, it can be direct, whatever it is, they're just going to deny. Because people don't want to be made wrong. It's a devaluation of their own sense of identity. And so I used to, work with many, many sports teams. Now I do more individuals, but, a lot of the trainers and coaches who are around the players all the time, they're like, so-and-so struggling. How do we help them? And I said, well, first of all, they have to seek help. They have to be open. And the greatest way to get somebody to open is, first of all, be a role model, be somebody who can inspire others through your own choices, but also be a safe space. So with your approach or the way that you're delineating it, if you're trying to help somebody, as well-intended as that is, that's not a safe space. Because what you're subtly saying as the subtext to your behavior is there's something wrong with you and I'm going to fix you, which also creates a superiority. No one's going to respond well to that. So the actual access to helping people is, first of all, be a safe space and stop trying to help them so that they can actually then come to you. Which seems antithetical to most people, right? But again, it goes back to your original question, the levels of consciousness.
Right.
If you struggle to let people be where they are, that's your work, meaning there's the absence of love and acceptance, which really is a reflection of the world according to you, which is the audacity of the ego, where you're not loving and accepting of yourself. I need things to be a certain way for me to be okay. That's a tyrannical perspective.
Yeah. You mentioned earlier with the perfectionism aspect to this golf player and what he was doing, right? And Don't you think like we all have a little bit of that though?
For sure. Yeah,
Like,
yeah, it's
and
very
it comes
human.
down to being the fact that when we were younger, we had no control over anything.
Mm-hmm.
And as we age and we become adults and, we're given an opportunity to control things, we control most things, or we
Mm-hmm.
try to control most
That's the
things.
illusion, yeah.
That's the illusion. And then we start to realize that actually you can't control anything.
No.
Not reactions of people, not anything. You
Yeah.
can plan out the perfect event,
Mm-hmm.
and yet, people will show up late and you start late. It's
Mm-hmm.
going to be in every aspect of life, right?
Yeah.
And so, how does it work in terms of this illusion of control? Why are we stuck in it? How do we get out of that? Because a lot of people don't even think they're controlling anything. They think
Yeah.
like, they're free flowing, but
Yeah.
actually they control everything, or they want to think that they control everything.
Yeah.
And that causes toxic dynamics in not just in relationships, but in every single, aspect and stage in life, because we
Yeah.
want, as an entrepreneur like myself,
Mm-hmm.
I want to control every aspect of my business.
Yeah.
Right. And I
Mm-hmm.
want to make sure that things go the way I want them to go.
Yes.
But obviously that causes a lot of, toxic mental states, anxiety, stress that I get all the
Yeah.
time because I'm not sleeping the
Yes.
day before my event, or I
Yeah.
can't, so many different things that happens in that space of people who are controlling businesses or various different things. And how can someone who has this like obsession of perfectionism or control
Yeah.
move away from that and live more free flowing and still expect the same outcome?
No.
Is
Perfect
there a
question.
possibility?
100%. 100%. I live from there. That's what I teach people. So even in your questioning, which is beautiful, and I just get I appreciate the vulnerability and the sincerity of your questions, and how I can see, especially knowing you're a mom and you run a business, is like how much effort you put into trying to make things, perfect or the
Yeah.
way you want them. So I would say in your languaging, you say you said, I'm trying to control my business and all the outcomes. I would say you're not. That's the symptom of what you're really trying to do beneath the surface, which is survive.
Yes.
So when you can start to see, it's like, this man was walking down the street, just as a sort of an analogy. Late at night, it's dark. And he sees ahead, underneath this street light, this woman is on all fours, sort of stroking the ground, like looking for something. And as a gentleman, he comes up, he says, oh, can I help you? It looks like you've lost something. And she says, yes, I dropped one of my contact lenses. And he's like, oh, okay, well, let me help you. Do you remember when you last had it? And she said, yeah, I'm pretty sure I dropped it as I got out of my car. He said, that's great. Where's your car? She said, oh, it's on the other side of the street. And he's like, well, then what are you doing over here? She said, well, it's so much easier to see under the street lamp, right? So
Right.
that's, the illusion of you aren't wanting to control outcomes and not sleep before an event. That is the symptom and the byproduct of deep in your core, you're being driven by fear.
Yes.
And
It's
that's
fear. It
okay.
stems from everything. It always stems
Fear
from
is the
fear.
most primordial emotion. I delineate two worlds. Like I'm bringing this new kind of operating system for humanity where we're out of the world of limitation, fear, suffering, disease, and dysfunction, which is the current, you need to look at any city, any country, any nation, any religion. We live in a world of suffering.
Yes.
And it is all because people and their subconscious narratives are based in constraint. That constraint will lead to the primordial emotion of fear. We are designed to survive in that current operating system. When you step out of that, you experience, as you know, my main product, which is freedom. It is liberation from the constraints of your own mind, which then gives rise to an experience of love, not fear. That is the acceptance, no matter what somebody's conditioning, no matter their level of consciousness. It's allowing things to be in harmony with life as opposed to being resistance to it. Then from the space of love, you have a new sense of joy as opposed to suffering. You see pure possibility. You have affinity and love in your relationships as opposed to dysfunction. Instead of scarcity, you have abundance. It's an entirely different way to live. So that's the how, is to realize that the world you live in is a lie based on your primordial wiring to survive. And that's human. And there's humility with that. There's profound acceptance, and go, okay, what is Mary trying to survive? You're a woman, you're a mother, you're a business owner. It gets amplified, especially as you're a parent. Okay, now I know your son is older, but to begin with, your survival instincts are now 10x, because it's not just you have next of kin.
Exactly.
And so that becomes part of your nervous system. And before you know it, you're being driven by fear versus choice. It's reaction, it's not creativity.
Right.
Two entirely different ways to respond or to react to life.
Do you think it's possible to have true freedom without forgiveness for self and others?
That's a great question. I think it is, but it's much easier to if you do. Because forgiveness is really a big word, and I think it's misconstrued. It's oftentimes in the world of judgment, like, I forgive them. Well, how pious of you, and like, holier than thou of you to say, well, little old them, they did me wrong. It's like, really? Pull your head out of your ass. It's
Yeah.
like, so forgiveness tends to be, for me, more of a self-reflective experience, that I
Yeah.
forgive myself for the way that I have judged others. I forgive
Yeah.
myself for how hard I've been on myself. I forgive myself for judging that I'm not where I'm meant to be. It's less about other and it's more about myself. So that really is a great access point to freedom. I don't think it's a necessity, but it's certainly an intrinsic part of it.
Do you think that you have achieved true freedom?
I would say more than most. I don't know if it's complete, like I joked at the YPO event, I'm not walking on water yet. So, there's still opportunity for me to grow. But I do feel that as it relates to humans who are free, I'm sort of at the bow of the boat and why I'm able to help others, but am I free of, growth and opportunity? I'm still, as I say, a masterpiece and a work in progress, like all of us. So I'm still here to learn and grow. I'm definitely not at the finish line.
You have inspired so many people with the way you talk about freedom and the mind, and
Mhm.
and the reason why those kind of topics go extremely viral is
Mhm.
because most people have no freedom
Yeah.
at all, and they feel like they're maybe at the cusp, and then automatically they get pulled back, and automatically they're like, actually, I'm not there.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's we live in a world where it's a lot of pain and a lot of
Mhm.
suffering, and not just in the mental health space, because that's just a massive topic on its own, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But also just health
Yeah.
as a whole,
Mhm.
right? People are just so unhealthy because they blame themselves for everything that happens to them,
Yeah.
right? It's always like, this didn't go well because of this. Or we live in a world of people that just like to complain over everything.
Yeah.
Instead of like trying to fix things and more, optimistic, they're more pessimistic
Yeah.
about everything.
Yeah.
And for someone who lives in that current mindset right now, like
Mhm.
just a pessimist, how would you reframe their mindset? What's the first thing they need to do?
It's less about what they need to do, and invariably it's a reflection of the environment they've become accustomed to, meaning that as they grew up, anybody who's in a state of fear or suffering or pessimism typically grew up in an environment where there were three things missing. And I always say this is what every human being wants. We want to be seen, we want to be heard, we want to be held. And as a mother, that probably resonates, because your boy, like any parent listening, through no fault of your own, probably had some of those absent, certainly at times, and that's no reflection of you being a bad mother. It's just you have a busy life. So what I bring is that triumvirate of energy for people. So if somebody's pessimistic, I first of all want to see, hear, and hold their pessimism. I get it. I get, because their reality to them is the way it is. Who am I to deny them their perspective? That then becomes a safe haven for them to go, wow, thank you for just getting me, which immediately softens. And then they get a glimpse of hope that there's actually some people out there who care. And that pessimism just got transformed into opportunity and positivity.
You, as I have, had some deep loss
Mm-hmm.
early in life.
Yeah.
So I lost my father to cancer, actually,
Yeah.
quite early on, and you lost both of your parents before adulthood.
Yes.
Now that must have been traumatic, we
Very.
must say, but
Yeah,
also like it definitely shaped who you are today.
for
Like
sure.
it shaped who I am today.
Yeah.
And for you today, where do you see your philosophies of freedom? How is that shaped where you are today based on those experiences?
Beautiful question. I think in ways that I probably, well, definitely couldn't comprehend at the time. I think my parents taught me many lessons, as did their passing. So my mum, at 7, my mum died of cancer. There's not much that I recall. I think what she taught me in a way that was a survival instinct for me at the time was so much of my kindness, my compassion was because as a little boy, I recognized my needs weren't important. Now, I'm not saying that's a good constraint to develop. It's sort of served me well now that I'm beyond it. When I was in it, I would become less preoccupied with myself, which, isn't great. That's not self-love, right? I became a great boyfriend. I became a great friend because I was always attending to other people's needs. So in a sort of almost dysfunctional way, my mum taught me the importance of having love and kindness for others, until I also then learned to incorporate myself, was the evolution of that. My father adored me. He accepted me for who I was. And so I think he taught me true love and acceptance of others. And then loss really showed me, the fragility of life and the gift that it is to be human and to not take anything for granted. That's what I'm going to be talking about later on today. So I think there were many lessons there about like the nature of life, the beauty of life, the importance of love and acceptance, the power of truly allowing people to be who they are. And so they were some of the formative things that, got ingrained into my nervous system, unbeknownst to me, until I could unpack them and understand them. And, it was the loss of my parents, the narrative of the loss of them, that was the catalyst for me to sort of step into this world that I now live from, which is true freedom, because the relationship that was that primary catalyst for me to discover this new world was where a girlfriend had left me. And it sort of brought to the surface all of those fears of loss. And what I realized is during the course of the relationship, I was never really in a relationship with her, like most people. I hope everyone can hear what I'm about to say. Most people aren't in a relationship with the other person. They're in their own relationship to themselves and how they perceive the other person.
Yes.
Which is why most relationships don't work.
Yes.
And so in my, I was 20 something, so I didn't know much about love, but I thought I was in love with this person. In fact, I was more in fear of them leaving me, which made sense. No one's going to begrudge me that, as a man, as a boy, having my parents pass. So I realized that the narrative of loss meant that in this relationship romantically, I was being the perfect boyfriend as a compensation for the underlying fear of loss again. And so when she left me, because I say fear will break its own heart, the self-fulfilling prophecy of the mind is like, so she did leave, which was the greatest gift that life could have given me, because in the absence of her, I was left to process my fear. I realized I never lost my parents. My parents died. They passed. I didn't lose them, right? Because loss then leaves a gap. There's something missing in me versus, no, I had the greatest parents anyone could ever have. It was short-lived. But I've got friends of mine whose father's still alive after 70 years, and he's never once told them that he loves them,
Yeah.
So did I have it bad for 17, So that was one of the biggest catalysts. Is then I realized, I got introduced to the very nature of life when she left, because my mind was so preoccupied and obsessed with trying to figure out, where is she? Is she dating someone else? Will I see her again? All of these sort of unanswerable questions. And one day I got the answer to all of them, which is, I don't know. I don't know where she is. I don't know if I'll see her again. And I don't know if I'll find love like that again. And I was totally at peace with not knowing, at which moment I realized, the very nature of life is uncertainty. We don't know. But as a human being, that creates fear, because we want to know we're okay. And so that is the paradox of being human. That is the conundrum. The nature of life is uncertainty, but our brain is designed to predict and protect to survive.
Yeah.
But once you stop trying to survive, you're now in harmony with the way that life just naturally unfolds. And so that was the genesis of my freedom.
I think that's so beautifully said, because every single one of us that goes through like deep loss at such a young age with our parents, especially if you were really close to your parents and you consider them your best friend and your role model and your mentor, and like life shatters for you right after that, when you're no longer in an environment where you can consult them for things and like, they're there to love you. You feel like you're inadequate in so many ways. You look at yourself as like, what did I do wrong? Why did this have to happen to me? We live in a world where it's always, why did this happen to me?
Yeah.
And we cannot accept the fact that it happened for a reason
Yeah.
at the moment that it happened. And then when we look, past 10 years down the road, we're like, so glad that happened.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? And I say that because there's so many things that happened in my life throughout the last, 2 decades, that I look back and I think I wouldn't be where I am today. Even though it was like really, really painful, I wouldn't be where I am today if that didn't happen.
Absolutely.
Right? And even though I couldn't understand at that time, and even though I wanted that to still be in my life at that time, I'm just like, why?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Another very controversial, I think, topic I want to bring up.
Okay, let's go then.
I mean, because people really, I mean, speak about Aubrey Marcus a lot, right? And
Okay.
the way like he lives life, and
Mhm.
you know, he went kind of viral with his view on relationships
Mhm.
and so on. And then I bring this up because right now I'm also at the age where I'm in my 40s, and I'm surrounded by women who are either been in partnerships for 20 years and broke up with them,
Yeah.
30 years and broke up with them, and look at relationships in such a different way now.
Yeah.
You know, in my 20s, I grew up with a perception that you're only meant to be with one person your whole life.
Yes.
Because my parents were like that. When
Mhm.
my father passed away, my mom never remarried. So
Mhm.
I looked at the sanctity of marriage as like you are meant to marry one person and be with them for your whole life.
Yeah.
And then, you know, I end up married,
Mhm.
breaking up in 6 months of that marriage, having
Mhm.
a son with him, and then like my whole concept or construct of what relationship were like down the drain.
Yeah, yeah.
And then after that, I've always wanted to just find partnerships where I would just be with one person my whole life.
Yeah.
And then those partnerships, they don't work.
Yeah.
Right. And then I'm now in my 40s and I'm still single.
Yeah.
So, and my friends are in those dynamics where they've been in relationships for so long and then they're
Yeah.
single. So, what is your view on actual relationships? Is there an expiration date?
I mean, we could do multiple podcasts on relationships. So I think I'm going to jump first of all on the
Yeah.
expression you've used twice, which is, you know, you're only supposed to be with one person your whole life. And my response is you are yourself.
Yeah.
That's the only
Yes.
relationship that really matters. And that's not in any way to
Yes.
dismiss relationship with other, whether
Yes,
they be
beautiful.
familial, friends, professional, romantic. I love relationships. I love to relate. But again, as you know, I write quotes and I say most people are in a relationship, but not in relationship.
Yeah.
Meaning they're in the form of one, my spouse, my partner, my life partner, my whatever, my girlfriend, my boyfriend, but they don't know how to relate. So the only relationship to me that truly matters is the one with yourself, such that you're at peace, you are free, you're self-loving and accepting, such that then you can start to have relationships with others. Because otherwise, all relationships are the catalyst to reveal where you're still not okay with things.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, most people don't look through that lens, and so it's always the other person's fault, which is, you know, the blame, the guilt, the shame, the domination, the manipulation, and the victimhood that most people live within, which is why most people don't have relationships. They're not in relationship with the other person. So the real takeaway for me in relationships is, to what degree do I have the most loving, harmonious, at peace, liberated relationship with myself? That is the precursor to the most beautiful relationships with other human beings.
That doesn't answer my question though. It
Okay.
doesn't answer my question in the sense like, do relationships have expiration dates, or do you think people just can stay together forever? Is forever even a thing?
All the above, because the expiration date is an illusion based on the human facade, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
every relationship that you ever had is eternal, because as beings, we're eternal. So every relationship, I always talk about the idea of the right one. Everybody's the right one.
Everybody's the right one.
100%, because they're right for where you're at and whatever you need to look at right now.
Right.
So
I
the
like
whole
that.
concept of, like, you know, the Tom Cruise, you complete me, and all of this, and the idea that, you know,
Yes.
old generations, you're only with one person, and God bless your mom. You know, I can remember I was interviewed for a TV show that we might be doing, and the gentleman was like, you know, like, I just feel like such a failure because we got divorced after 3 years and my parents have been together for 50. And I'm like, okay, describe their relationship. He's like, well, I don't know. They're always at each other's throat. They haven't
Exactly.
slept in the same bed since I was 13, you know, so they've been in separate rooms for like 30 something years. I'm like, wow, that's something to aspire to, isn't it? You know, I said,
Yeah.
you're already more successful than your parents because you
Exactly.
actually honored the truth of the fact that the relationship wasn't working. And again, that's not to belittle or dismiss, you know, the commitments that are made in vows, particularly in marriages. Like, people don't honor their word even in meeting people for coffee. You know, they're late. Oh,
Totally.
sorry, it was traffic. I mean, people don't need any justification to end things in life. So for me, the sanctity of a relationship is more to do with what you said and the degree to which you honor that, as opposed to the illusion that you're supposed to be with one human for the rest of your life. It's like, to what degree are you actually honoring what you say?
Yeah.
And most people
right.
don't.
Don't.
So yes, there's an expiration on everything on the human level, on the three-dimensional level. Everybody's going to serve their purpose for you. And just to realize you're not a victim of life, you're a beneficiary of it. And whether it's a 6-month relationship or a 60-year relationship, what I hope you get from it is where you recognizing to become a more loving, more evolved, more free human being, you know?
That's exactly the answer I was looking for.
Okay,
That's
I'm happy to
exactly
fulfill.
that I wanted to hear, because
Yeah.
because I believe the same thing. I think
Yeah.
as we get older, we start to realize those things, but it comes with age, I think, and a
Mhm.
lot of experience
Mhm.
and things that I sat with you and I was 20 today, I would never understand that concept.
Right.
But
Yeah.
now I'm sitting here and I understand that so much more
Yeah.
because you have to have lived it to know it,
Of course. Yeah.
right?
And that's the whole journey of life and wisdom, right? You know, there's a
Yeah.
lot of knowing. We're at a conference where there's a lot of knowledge, but underneath it, you know, I'm going to assert today there's not much wisdom.
Yeah.
And that comes with time and experience.
Exactly. And that's why I feel like my 40s has been the best decade of my life thus far.
Mm-hmm.
And because now I'm confident. I
Mm-hmm.
know who I am. I don't need to pretend to be someone I'm not, or
Yeah.
to please others or care about opinions. And it's only when you step into that space in life can you
Mhm.
truly be free.
Yeah.
Because we are living in a constant environment where we care so much about the opinion of others.
It seems that way. I would
Yeah.
actually make one of my favorite distinctions
Tell
to
me.
help is that you don't. Caring is anatomically heart-centered. It's here, right? We're
Yeah.
caring sentient beings. We can't not care, especially, you know, the feminine maybe more, but I would argue our nature is love. Especially when you become a parent, that becomes amplified, as I said. But mind is where worry exists. So people say, oh, you know, they think they've gotten to a place where, oh, I just don't care what people think. No, that's not actually a powerful place to stand, because now you've become separate from life. You've dismissed life. You're resigned to the fact that, well, fuck it, people are going to think whatever they think. I care more than anyone I know. I just don't worry.
Yeah.
And then to make it even more profound, people, well, you were never worried what other people thought about you. You were worried what you thought they thought about you, which is still your own dysfunctional relationship with yourself.
Yeah.
You
That's so
used other people as the excuse.
yeah, so true. We live life using other people as an excuse
For
for
everything.
for everything.
Yeah. Yeah. Even the levels of consciousness they're at, apparently.
Even yeah, actually, very true. That's
Yeah.
very true. And yeah, I don't know. I think I've had so many profound learnings in my 40s. Yeah, so I think I'm better equipped with life and with relationships.
Mhm.
And I think, meeting people like yourself who have a completely different perspective on life just puts you in the back seat.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, in
And
a good way, right?
but yeah,
Like less.
in the most incredible way, because
Yeah.
if you're not accepting of other people's viewpoint, because what's life if it isn't about perception?
Yeah, that's
Right? That's why
perspective is reality. Yeah.
exactly. And that's why relationships are thriving, because how we perceive things isn't really the reality, but we're
Mhm.
perceiving it that way based on
Mhm.
triggers, traumas, and so on.
Yeah.
My last question to you,
Yes, my dear.
and I think a really important one as well, is that what is the one thing that people wish that what is the one wish that you think people should be asking themselves in life in general
Mhm.
before they react to anything? Just
The
the
one
one thing
wish.
that the one wish that people should be, asking themselves before they react, because we're all just we react over everything,
Yeah, yeah.
constantly reacting. But
Yeah.
before reacting, what is the one wish that you wish people would do instead of just reacting?
I think ultimately, you know, people are under the illusion that they want many things, right? They want a better body, they want a nice relationship, they want more money, they want a bigger place, a nicer home. There's many things that humans want. Wanting is a funny dynamic because it actually creates time. So for me, if I were to wish something for other people prior to that, it's really to understand what is it like when you're no longer at the effect of life, right? Reaction is, I'm a victim, something's happening, that pissed me off, my neighbor, my friend, my da-da-da, I'm upset because of something else. And to recognize that you're either a victim of life or you're fully responsible. And that's a hard place for people to go. But when you're
Yeah.
fully responsible, you tap into what everybody's looking for, which is not success, it's not love, it's true peace.
It's true peace. Totally right. Before we end this episode,
Yes.
and I just wanted to say that thank you so much. You have given me so much insights on life, relationships, motherhood, entrepreneurship.
Mhm.
That really true freedom stems from the one takeaway I'd take from this is that instead of trying to change others, look
Mhm.
at it within yourself.
Yeah.
Love, acceptance, compassion.
Yeah.
And that will take you further than anything will ever take you.
And it would make for a much more beautiful world for us all to live in.
And it will make for a much more beautiful world to live in. Now, I wanted to gift you with something.
Okay.
And I like to gift all my guests with this one
That's
thing.
very kind.
And, I'm obsessed with technology, AI,
Yeah.
wearables,
Okay.
and I love tracking data.
Yeah.
And I would love to give you a wearable right now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and it's from a company called Gabbit. I use
Okay.
it myself. I like it because it tracks everything from the VO2 max.
Yeah.
It tracks hormone profile. But the one thing that I've discovered from this particular wearable that isn't with any other wearable is that it even tracks your nutrition.
Wow.
So it gives you all the pillars. You just talk it out in an AI
Yeah.
and it gives you all of it. So I'm going to gift you one right now.
That's very kind. If we could get them to maybe incorporate how they can detect someone's level of freedom and peace, that would be great too. I
Yeah.
can work with them on that.
Can we do that? Can we work with them on that?
Possibly.
How do we do that?
I don't know.
Let's-
I'm assuming if you have these to dish out, you might have a relationship with them.
I am a shareholder with it.
Okay. there
Yeah,
you go.
so I'm one of the.
Okay.
So this is for you.
That's very kind. Thank
I will
you.
give you. Do you use a wearable? I see you have one.
Yes, I have.
Is it an
I guess
Aura?
one of their bigger competitors.
it
Yes,
Aura?
Aura. Yes.
Yeah. so,
I'm
but
curious.
love, please try
Yeah.
do try the Gabbit.
I will.
I
Thank
would
you.
love for you to check them out. Only
I-
because the one pillar I guess the other wearables don't have is the nutrition
Yeah.
aspect of it. And as someone who's a gut specialist,
Yeah.
would love for you
Amazing.
to have a Gabbit and try it on.
That's very kind.
But
of you.
also another thing is, how do we incorporate that what you just mentioned into something like that? True frequencies.
Yes.
True frequencies.
Yeah. Well, I mean, for now, without having it in technology, people can certainly go to my platforms and my website, Peter Crone for
Yeah.
Instagram, and I have a
Yeah.
whole membership. Super affordable. It's $29 a month, less than a few coffees a week, and you get 100 plus hours of how to access true freedom, love, and possibility.
I love that. Thank you so much for your time, Peter.
Thank you, Mary.
Really, really
Pleasure to be with
appreciate you.
Yes, you too, my dear.